Chair. This is Greg Schaefer. I'm staff representative for DEAB, and thank you very much for having us this morning. I want to thank, of course, all of the county council, also Ms. County Manager. Thank you for your time this morning. We understand that we have an hour, and we will work to conclude by 11 o'clock. The purpose in our meeting this morning is to present to you an overview of our annual report, which captures DEAB's accomplishments and those items that we worked forward in the year 2020, and also to preview our work plan for this coming year of 2021 and also 2022. I want to briefly point out that through this past year of COVID, DEAB has continued on very strong. We have continued to meet on a monthly basis, virtually, of course, as has all the county throughout the various departments. We've continued to meet virtually every month, and I'm sure that you'll find, as Eric and Dan make our presentation today, you'll find many items and impressed with the work that DEAB has undertaken. I just would like to mention that we have 11 very active members through the normal course of term completion, and also we had one member that needed to leave us this past year due to a different employment. But nonetheless, our staff committee remains completely full. We are easily able to refill. There are those that within the development community that are eager to serve on our committee, and many of the members continue to serve beyond their initial terms. So we have a very active and dedicated group. It's been our practice when we've met in person to have each DEAB member introduce themselves. I'm not sure if that's possible in the virtual format, and if it's not, I just want to make the point that our DEAB members are listed on the front page of your report. And then hopefully you can at least see them on your virtual screen this morning. So with that, we would normally turn to Eric Galimo. At this time, he was our chair through the year 2020 to prevent the first half of our report, and then we'll report the upcoming work plan will be Mr. Dan Weisner, who is our 2021 chair.
Can you guys hear me okay? All right. Good morning, councilors. Eric Galimo with SGA Engineering, and as Greg mentioned, I'm the outgoing 2020 chair, and I'm going to go over the kind of our accomplishments from 2020, and then I'm going to turn it over to Dan to go over the work plan for 2021 and 2022. So, first, I want to start by thanking you guys for the opportunity to serve. This continues to be a very constructive board. It's been very collaborative with staff. It's a great environment where, we may not always see eye to eye, but we come away with a better perspective, I think, both the development community and staff. So we're able to see each other's sides, and we understand it a little bit better, and it's very constructive. We work towards a solution. Sometimes it takes a little longer than we want, but it's been extremely productive, and I'm pretty proud of what we've been able to accomplish over the years on this board. So it was a challenging year with the remote. We tried to adapt as much as we could, but it's a unique year with unique challenges. So I don't want to go through the entire report and read it. I want to save some time for questions. So I just want to summarize kind of a few items, and then also ask you guys what we can do for you. We are your advisory board, and our purpose is to advise and to serve you. So I want to make sure that we're meeting your goals, and we're fulfilling the role that we need to fill, that you need us to. So kind of turning to like the second page of the report with the 2019-2020 accomplishments. And we did not give a report to you guys in 2019. So we kind of lumped a few of the ones from 2019 together with 2020. So if you can flip to the kind of the next page on the work plan. There we go. I said, I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm just going to hit some of the highlights. And one of our kind of prime roles is continuing participation and feedback on biannual code changes. You can see a few of them that we looked at there. One of the second one on here, we've spent quite a bit of time on, and we're continuing to work on that, and that is the rural single-family SFR permits, that's single-family residences. That's been a challenging process for the development community, and we're looking to streamline that process. Worked with staff, and I know Max Booth, we're working right now on a checklist to try to simplify the stormwater reports that are required with SFRs. Right now, we're doing very detailed reports that cost a lot of money. They take a lot of time and resources, and we're trying to streamline that to basically educate, I think, staff and the development community on what's actually necessary for at least the 1 through 5s, which are the simpler ones. And then we're going to see where that goes and try to expand that to other areas of the submittals for single-family residences. One of the other things we looked at more in 2019 was we had a joint board or a joint committee with the Parks Advisory Board, and we looked at their plan and trying to revisit their plan. There was a impact fee change, and we're looking at trying to be more efficient with the parks, make sure it meets the goals of the county, and also try to look at the cost of it. And one of the concerns we had in the development community was the fees were going up significantly, I think over 200%. And we want to make sure that we balance that with housing affordability, and we're providing the parks that we need, and we're making sure we count the parks that are the areas that are serving as parks and open space that may not be in the plan now. So we may be overestimating in some areas and underestimating in others. So we work with them to try to take another look at their park plan. One of the main things we did this year was several of the members participated on the vacant buildable lands model, which is still going on. There's a hearing coming up, I believe, later this month, well, actually next month. And DEAB has provided quite a bit of feedback on that, and we'll continue to put together kind of our position on the findings of that report and any suggestions we may have to advise you on how to move forward. We're looking at examples of how to improve permitting timelines. One example is something that came up in the last meeting, and it was concurrent review of building permits and engineering for site plans. So currently, say a commercial, maybe a jobs creator would come in, and the policy right now in the county is that they're not looking at building plans until the site plan and the engineering plan is approved. So we're looking at trying to come up with a process that allows concurrent review of those. It can shave probably 4 months off the timeline. And the way the county is doing it right now is inconsistent with what other jurisdictions in town are doing. So City of Vancouver reviews them concurrently. Battleground, Camas, most jurisdictions review them concurrently. So we're working with staff to try to get their process in line with kind of the industry standard, and also try to trim that timeline down. We were called in by some of the counselors to participate on the permitting of agricultural exempt structures, and we participated in that work session with you guys, and I think that is still in the works. I'm not sure if there was a decision made, but we continue to provide feedback on that. And the last item I had is kind of looking at number 12, and that's we continue to be an active supporter of economic development and housing affordability in Clark County. That's a significant issue right now, and especially housing availability and affordability. Prices have gone up significantly. We're pricing a lot of people out of the market, and it's one of those things I'm personally passionate about. I want to make sure that it's not necessarily the people in our community that have homes now. It's our kids. It's our future. And we need to make sure they have those opportunities and they can afford to live in this community. And we need to do what we can to try to make housing and that American dream affordable for our kids as well as, ourselves. So that's all I had. I'm going to turn it over to Dan now to go over our work plan, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers, or we can do that as we go. Your choice.
Well, are there questions at this point for Eric and what he reported? Or Eric or Dan, will this broaden what was just given? Or is this a new report? Dan?
The work plan going forward is is a little bit of broadening of what Eric's
Okay.
just talked about, but not a whole lot. A lot of what we're already working on or continue to work on is stuff that we're working on currently, and that stuff that is in front of you right now.
Okay. Are there quick questions of the council before we move to Dan's portion?
Well, I'll hold off until the end.
Okay.
But I did want to respond to Eric's request
Yeah.
for our ask.
Yeah.
I have some asks, but I'll save them
Yeah.
for the end.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
All right, then let's go on to the work plan that we have, which is on page 4 and 5 of your report there. And what it is just a summary that we're trying to group, showing that we're grouping things, that make the process and resource utilization improvements, streamline customer service, work on the housing affordability, as Eric talked about. That's also a passion of mine. I've job growth, economic development, but I'd first like to single out Eric for all the work that he's done and continues to do. I think that he's been an outstanding, not only the past chair, but also he's put forth a lot of effort on this board for quite some time, and I really want to publicly thank him. And I think that you guys have got an outstanding servant, that he has really made this a collaboration effort with the county staff, and it has a very great environment to be in. So thanks, Eric. A little background, since I'm new, I've actually been a developer for around here for 25 years, and I've been involved in the initial Green Belt Council with the BIAW. I've actually a hard science guy. I have a background in water quality and chemistry, so the innovation that we're trying to achieve and continue to push forward with with development is certainly something that should be able to come through DEAB. And as Eric said, we're here to serve you guys and to work with staff. So we're your advocates for the council members, and we are ones that really the work plan in front of you, as you see, there's like 5 general areas. The question I would raise is, which area would you prefer us to focus on or continue to try and work with the staff on? So, and I know that we were trying to cut this down from 2 hours to 1 hour. So that's really all I've got. You've got the report in front of you, and we're open for questions.
Yeah, from past work sessions, we've had probably the best part has been the question and answer. And so we wanted to leave some time for that. And we usually have a really good discussion during question and answer.
Okay, Gary, do you want to start since you said you have some? Or there are asks, I guess, not questions.
So there, I want to thank what you all do. I mean, we rely very heavily on your word, and I'd like to rely more heavily on your word and give you a lot more to do. So I'm just going to throw some things out very quickly that you've captured a lot of it in what you want us to focus on. You just mentioned road arterials. I've been very frustrated from ICC, the RTC, what our staff's worked on and hasn't worked on regarding our major arterial, as far as where's the next bridge crossing or tunnel? Where's the next corridor going to be? We are not making any progress locally on that issue. So I'm just going to throw that out there right away. But my main goal for this year and the next few years is to really see the permitting process streamlined. We need your help. You know, what is redundant? What is unnecessary? What is simply made up? You know, we hear a lot from different constituents on, well, they've got this white oak requirement. We have a snag requirement. We have all these buffer requirements. Some of this stuff is urban legend and doesn't seem to even be in any of our clean water or environmental rules or regulations. I mean, I want to streamline this process, eliminate that which is redundant. Why can't we accept an engineer stamp? You know, if the state has licensed engineers and they've developers put resources into engineering work, why can't we accept that? You know, I'm looking to streamline and make these permits timely. You know, right now they're taking a year or 2 years, where there's a lot of effort underway right now by management on working to kind of revamp and adopt some of the reforms that were promised over a year ago. But we need to know technically what's required, what's not. Stormwater is a big one. We've heard a lot of that recently. So I'd really like to have your help in identifying what is happening at the base level that's unnecessary, property to property, the impediments that we're having in the permitting process that really is somewhat made up or just extra that the counties come up with from worker to worker. So that's kind of my ask. I've heard about white oak requirements and canopy setbacks for roads and the envelope of a house, the need to plant other trees, and some of it doesn't seem to have a basis in regulation or law. So I know that's a wide and broad stab at my request, but I'd really like to see some really forward progress on shortening our permitting progress and eliminating that which we need not focus on.
I can hit some of those here, Councillor. So you made some very good points, some very good suggestions. Some of the items you mentioned are things we're looking at right now. Let me hit one of them, the SFR list for stormwater. So we're working right now with staff and I'm going to just kind of read the objective of what we're trying to do. And what we're trying to do is to provide a simplified checklist, cursory level review to show competency in the provided design, basically from an engineer. And you hit it before that you hit it where, why don't we take an engineer stamp? Well, it's maybe a little more complicated than that. And we've looked at this issue before. So the engineers, we're licensed is not necessarily, we're licensed because we work in areas of gray. It's not like, I would say like a plumber, an electrician where the codes are very firm. Engineers work in shades of gray. We balance competing interests. And one of the things I think the review process, we found that it is a necessary process because we need a check and balance between what interests we're competing and whose interests are covered. So the engineers looking out, trying to design it, staff makes sure that to review those competing interests and make sure that the public is looked out for. And it's that the design is in the best interest of the general public. So the intention's always good. We do go too far sometimes. And so with the SFR, what we're looking at doing is trying to do this cursory review and provide a design and avoid labor-intensive review for small SFR stormwater plans. If it meets the level and is prepared by a licensed engineer, it can be assumed to be adequate. The level of review should be proportional to the associated risk in which is less for a single-family residence for stormwater plans. We didn't even review these years ago. So right now, we threw these in. We're almost reviewing these to the same level we are a full like subdivision or a site plan. And the reality is the impact is so much less. The process is about the same. And you have less, when these are being submitted, they're being submitted by less sophisticated applicants and they're not being charged much. So the county's in a tough spot where they end up, I think, doing these plans for a lot of the applicants that are submitting them. So we're trying to simplify this process that we can get people who know what they're doing to do them, and they're not over-reviewed by the county. You kind of look, and for example, we do this big report, and at the end of the day, we're putting splash blocks in. So instead of reviewing all the detailed calculations for that, what we want to do is, you know what you expect. When we look at one of these plans, we know what the design is going to look like. You can tell you before we start any of the calculations what we're going to do. We just have to go and justify it and do this big report. So instead of going through a detailed review, you look at is what's there, is what is expected to be there. Are you providing one of these BMPs that typically treat roof downspouts? Are you doing a downspouts, dispersion, infiltration? If you're doing one of these, move to the next area and assume that the engineer knows what they're doing on those pieces. So you're doing a balance between accepting the stamp and still doing the necessary review to make sure that you do what's necessary to serve the public. So that's what we're trying to get to. So some of the other ones you mentioned, White Oaks, some of those areas, I think you hit it on the head. The requirements have got ahead of the code in some areas, and we've come across regulations where there's not really anything in the code about it. It's a fish and wildlife issue. Two of the things that you mentioned, White Oaks, also biodiversity area. There's really no guidance on how to mitigate for those. So it's a negotiation each time. And it would probably be nice to have some clarification and make sure that we're doing what we need to do and no more. Process. There's a lot to work on there. And to tell you the truth, it's been a year of reaction. The environment of doing things remotely, trying to be efficient with the resources we have, kind of relearn how we do everything. Staff's had a very tough time. So has the development community. We're trying to do the best we can. One of the biggest low-hanging fruits that we brought up at the last DEAB meeting was that concurrent review of building plans and final engineering plans. I don't see any real reason why they shouldn't be able to be done. They're different departments. They're constructed together in those situations. So say you're doing a shopping center or an office building. A lot of times you're doing the site work at the same time as you're constructing the building. They should be reviewed the same way they're constructed. You shouldn't have to go through final engineering, which can be a 6-month process. I would say 4 to 6 month process. And then after that, go through the building plan. They should be reviewed concurrently. And that's low hanging fruit right there. They used to do that in the county. So a few years back, something changed. Excuse me. And now they're doing them in series instead of parallel. So we need to get back to that. That will provide that's low hanging fruit right there. Tried to touch on a few of your items. Some of them are going to take some work, and that's what we're doing. And I think you'll see a lot of the items on our work plan. Oh. Dan, anything to add?
No, only I want to reemphasize. I mean, that's what we were told a year and a half ago regarding consecutive and concurrent reviews. We were told that was a reform that was going to be adopted two Decembers ago. So I don't know what happened to that. I don't know where it veered off course, but yeah, I hear you're loud and clear on that. I thought that made perfect sense when I was first briefed on it.
And I think because, I was going to say, because Councilor Medvegy is representing the area that I used to represent, some of what he brought up is very familiar to me. And I would reiterate the whole white oak biodiversity issue. There doesn't seem to be a standard, and it almost seems like there are two different standards within our staff, within the department, because one staff says you do one thing, and then it goes to a different staff person who says you do something else. And that needs to be improved. But as I look at this list, it's like, no, we want to do everything. I know. Everything. But at number 4, if we don't do some of the first things or streamline some things or do concurrent things, we cannot increase job growth and economic development. It just can't happen. Nobody is going to want to sit through this process, or and not just because it's waiting, but because time is money. There's risk involved. There's market involved. There's all kinds of things involved that somehow it doesn't seem to get through during the review process. And I understand it's probably complicated. I just think that we could simplify it more. And I just want to say too, before we take more questions or, we finish with the comments, I want to thank Eric actually for chairing this last year, but also for being so responsive and so even keel and working with the staff, but at the same time helping us understand, you know, what some of the things are to be done. And I appreciate all of the people that serve on DEAB, because you have to give of your time to do this. And it must be frustrating sometimes for you, because you make these suggestions and then year after year, we seem to get the same report. So we are working on it. I promise you, we are working on it, and we do want to improve things. So, and we do appreciate your suggestions and want to implement as many of them as we can. But as I say, priority wise, it almost seems like we need to improve and streamline some of our things before we can increase job and economic development, and of course, housing affordability. And I think there are reasons for why is a problem here too. So, other questions of the council? Councilor Bowerman?
Mine is really repetitive, but I'm going to say it anyway. Thank you. It's just marvelous, the contributions that you make. It is much, much appreciated. I too am very concerned about areas where we go beyond code in our requirements. And for that matter, kind of the corollary to that, where does code currently go beyond what is a reasonable requirement in your judgment, whether it's because you know, maybe it's not required at other levels or whatever. Both of those areas, I'm very interested in hearing more about. Those timely permits, the simplified permits, the concurrent review. They're needed. They're not being done apparently in a rapid fashion. And you may have some insight into why, and we need to fix that. It's not just the overall factor of, you know, having concurrent review. Why in the world don't we? I mean, that is kind of something that is a standard in the industry, it would seem. So what's preventing us from getting there? My two main areas of focus are really in job growth and housing affordability. But I'm like you, Chair. I feel like once we've really tackled and dealt with these issues that DEAB has highlighted here, I think we're going to be getting far down the track toward both job growth and housing affordability, even better than we are right now. But we need that trajectory, right, coming out of COVID, and you're going to help us get there, and we're thankful for it. And thank you.
Other questions?
Well, I think on behalf of DEAB, we have a great team, and I appreciate the praises, and it's been my pleasure to work with this group. It's an amazing group of people on this board and staff as well. It's just been so constructive, and you know, it is frustrating at times, but it's also very rewarding when we do make gains and we're able to improve the process. And of all the boards I've served on, this has been one of the best and one of the most constructive. And I feel like, you know, we just don't go off on these tangents a lot of times. We rein ourselves in. We're very solution oriented, and so is the staff that's on the board that's working with us. And you know, the opportunity to see the other side, a lot of things that we think are simple and that are just a simple fix, it's always more complicated than you think it is. And we learn a lot about the struggles that staff has and the challenges that they have. And we try to balance those things and come up with a constructive solution. And I know over the last year, it sometimes has been frustrating because we haven't made as many gains as we'd like. But, you know, I don't want to make excuses, but the remote working environment is a challenge. It's also, you know, there's been some management changes, getting the right people in leadership. You have some great people at the county making sure that they stay there and that they can, you know, do their jobs. Staffing has been a challenge. I can say not just for the county, but even for our organizations. When you're trying to bring on new people and onboard new people in a remote environment, it's very difficult to train them. So I feel like what some of the challenges the county has is some of the same challenges we all have. And it's making sure that we have enough resource, enough manpower to review the level of permits that are happening right now. And if we can't, we need to find a more efficient way to do it with what we have. So, things I think have backed up because of that and because of the lack of staff and being able to hire new staff quickly. Also, this is something that I feel like having the right leadership, and I got to give Greg kudos, and if, he does a great job as our advocate on this board. He's very problem solving. He doesn't look at things as, no, we can't do that. It's trying to figure out a way to do it. So having that right attitude and the right culture and having the right leadership that brings that through the rest of staff is, I think, really important. And again, it's not just at the county level, it's, in any business. But again,
Thank you, Eric.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The other thing that I was going to say is, as you mentioned, Greg, I agree. I have watched Greg, and I see him as that sort of staff person as well. That he's very collaborative and will listen. So thank you, Greg. The one thing I did want to mention, Councillor Bowerman did mention this, when code exceeds maybe what is, let's say, state level, or when other jurisdictions are doing something less, they must also be within the state requirements. I would really love for those on DEAB and the staff that you have working with county staff to point out when you see that there are issues of code, or maybe code doesn't exist and maybe some arbitrary decisions are being made or different decisions. Really, like, you point that out for us. I have been wanting since 2017 to make sure that all of our county code does not exceed what the state requires of us. And you working with this, you folks working with this on a daily basis and working with other jurisdictions as well, might be able to alert us to some things that maybe could be addressed. So I would really appreciate that if you were able to do that when you see it, even at your monthly meetings, if you have somebody report if there's anything, and then that report could come to us. That would be great. Thank you. Are there other questions of the council?
Just reiterate my heartfelt thanks for this very important board and the work they do.
Well, we will certainly work with staff and continue to move forward with trying to, as Eric pointed out, some flow charts or checklists to be able to streamline some processes. I know Greg is eager to be able to do that. Gary, you brought up about the White Oaks, and I mean, I think that we could probably work on something with them around what some of the counties in California do. And that's where they have a flow chart that says, if this oak tree is below 16 inches diameter breast height, you can cut it. If it's between 16 and 24 inches, here's the mitigation charge that goes into a county fund. If it's over 30, I think it was over 30 inches, you have to leave it alone and you have to design around it, so that we can get some kind of standard that a developer can look at it and figure out very quickly what kind of impact there is, instead of waiting to the last second and looking at it going, oh my goodness, now I have to redo all this different stuff around a scraggly 12-inch oak tree that Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife is going to say, oh yeah, we agree that the evergreen is going to outcompete this thing, and if left alone, it will die. So it just becomes very caustic to the environment to have that kind of situation. So we'll continue to work with staff on something like that. Try and get checklists, flow charts, streamline stuff, speed it up. And I think there's ways of doing that. My background is actually in business process reengineering. I actually did IT manager, so there's ways of doing that. And I believe that the DEAB environment is a great format for us to be able to discuss that with staff.
Great, thank you, Dan. That's good.
Right. Well,
Gary,
one of the
did you have-
possible
Oh, Gary,
suggestions.
go ahead.
Oh, excuse me. So I think there's been a little bit of transition as the county council now has a county manager that runs things, and how the direction gets from council to staff. And I don't know that there's probably been a little bit of growing pains as the board that used to be commissioners have moved to counselors, and how that direction gets to staff, and what staff's participation is with the counselors. So I think that's one of those areas where we could use your support to make sure that the direction we gets to staff through the county manager or through us as a board. But I think sometimes that direction gets lost in translation. And if we can do a better job of making sure that makes it to staff, so we start in the right direction and we have that support. So that would be helpful to us, because we do get frustrated when we move in a direction and then we kind of hit a roadblock because a different staff person gets involved that has some different direction, and it doesn't always seem like it's focused. So if we can get a clear goal, then we can move towards that goal, whether we like it or not. We could use some better, like some direction. I think that would help us.
And
Great.
Madam Chair, if I may, could I just direct a question to Kathleen? Kathleen, are you focused on this concurrent review, consecutive review issue? I mean, literally, we were told, not this past December, but the prior December, that was a reform that was being rolled out. I mean, I was shown the letter to go to developers to explain the new process, and then it seemed to have just never happened.
Thank you, Councillor. So I wasn't aware of the conversation that was done 2 years ago. I wasn't privy to that, but I did have conversations with the current community development director regarding that. And so I know that they're looking at that. And I will just share that we are hopefully going to be ending our recruitment process fairly soon for that position as well. And if all works well with what I hope, and I can't share any more details, I'm confident that we'll have the right leadership. And I also want to express my thanks to DEAB. Both DEAB and BIA have both been very great to work with, and I appreciate the feedback, and I look forward to the continued feedback and partnership as we move forward with the process.
Thank you, Kathleen. That is helpful, and I think reassuring probably to the DEAB board and staff too. So thank you. Are there other questions or comments? Once again, thank you all on the DEAB board and for staff that works with the DEAB board for helping us out. And we look forward to your continued involvement, and we look forward to seeing some of these things come into fruition. So thank you again so much. We realize that you take time from your work schedules to volunteer on this board, and it is so much appreciated. Thank you. Greg, did you have anything, or you just want to say goodbye?
Madam Chair, thank you. I was just waving goodbye, but I do want to give assurances that already on our April 1st agenda, we have a slot for follow-up items as a DEAB committee. And so we will look at that specifically. And I will just also quickly close, given the emphasis on concurrent review. We have an internal meeting with the director on Monday morning for that. And so I think we'll have even further news on that item going into our April 1st DEAB meeting.
Great. Thank you so much. We will adjourn this meeting. Stay on now for council time. We're on the same WebEx. Is that correct, Kathleen? Yeah. Anyway, I believe we're on the same WebEx. So we'll just close this DEAB meeting, this DEAB report, and go into our council time. Get my agenda. Okay, You're muted. Are you going to start the recorder? Kathleen, you're muted. Oh. She says we can't be heard in the council room, so give them a minute.
Okay. Okay, we can hear you now.
Okay. All right. So let's then move